I lost $125,000 building my first startup. Not investor money, my own hard earned money that came from a line of credit. In this video, I want to talk about the mistakes I made so you don't have to pay for mistakes like I did. In 2018, I co founded a startup and we built it for about 3 years. And then COVID happened and then it all fell apart. That $125,000, it came from a line of credit and I paid it off when I sold my first house. What could have been profit became tuition. And here's what that tuition taught me. I picked co-founders based on relationship and friendship. My co-founders were friends and family, people I had known for years, people I trusted. And that was a problem more than it was a strength. I thought a good relationship meant that we'll also be good co-founders. We got along well, we respected each other, and they were great at what they did. But here's what I didn't realize. We had different goals, different visions for the company, and even different ideas about how hard to push and when to quit. We never talked about any of it. We didn't even have a founder's agreement. We had nothing in writing about equity, roles, or what happens if someone leaves. When I eventually stepped back from the company, the team fell apart, and two of my co founders left to start their own thing. And honestly, I understand why. I had almost a third of equity in the company, but I wasn't even actively working anymore. If I were them, I'd probably do the same thing. Being great friends doesn't mean you're compatible founders. You can love someone and still have totally different ideas about what you are building and why you are building. Founder compatibility is like matchmaking. You need aligned values, aligned goals, and you need to have hard conversations upfront before you are in middle of a crisis. If you are looking for a co-founder and starting with someone, stop and ask, what happens if it doesn't work out? What happens if one of us wants out? Write it down. Have the awkward conversations now. It's way easier than having it when everything is on fire. After that experience, I spend most of my time finding the right people than finding the right idea. Because if the team is right, the ideas find their own way. Now that brings me to the second big mistake I did. In 2018, I was an iOS engineer at Canada's largest bank, RBC. I was making about 80,000 a year, great salary for the time for a new grad. I was comfortable, stable, and honestly, it was a little bit boring. I had this fire in me. I wanted to do something big. So when we started the company, I quit. I wanted all in. The problem, we had only one paying customer, just one. And they were paying about $2,500 a year, not month. $2,500 for one full year. That's not traction, that's a side project. But I didn't even know what traction meant at the time. I just knew I was bored at my job and was really excited about the startup. So I stopped caring about my day job and eventually quit. I was thinking emotionally, not practically. Now, passion is fuel. It literally is. You really need passion to run a startup. But it's not business. You need real signals that people want what you're actually building, and they will pay for it. For us in B2B manufacturing, that meant that we had at least $5,000 in monthly recurring revenue, something that showed the business could actually sustain itself. Now, if you're like me, you're probably thinking about quitting your job and go full time on your startup. But before you do that, ask yourself, do I have real traction? Not just one customer, not a verbal yes. Do you have real recurring revenue? And treat it like a marathon, not a sprint. You can build on nights and weekends until you have proof, and then you can quit when you actually see something there. The next big mistake is probably everyone has made early in their career. I hired wrong. Not the wrong people per se, but we hired too early and we hired too much and for the wrong skills. We hired before even we understood what we were building. That burned through a lot of money and fast. We got excited. We had this idea and we hired people to build it. Even our first MVP was not built by us, it was built by a contractor. And then we kept hiring, cheap, fresh grads in India, overseas. Our platform was web based, and I only knew iOS. I've only done iOS engineering until then. And I didn't understand backend system, I didn't know web development. I was pretty early in my career. And then I hired people who didn't know themselves either because they were fresh grads just out of college. We also tried to build everything at once. We attacked from multiple places, multiple features, multiple directions, not really just focusing on one thing. By the time we realized we need more experienced people, the money was running out. And honestly, I was too inexperienced as a leader to attract and retain good talent anyway. So, when you hire before you understand the product, you are paying people to figure out what you should have already figured out yourself. And then, when you don't have the skills to evaluate them, you can't tell if they're actually doing good work or they're just doing busy work. Now, the lesson I learned from this is build your first version yourself, even if it takes longer. You need to understand every part of your product yourself before you hand it off to someone else. That knowledge pays you dividends forever. Hiring too early just delays your learning and drains away your runway. And that brings me to the last mistake. We bet everything on one big deal. We had one paying customer, and then we have one massive prospect. They wanted everything, every module in the suite, every tool we thought of, and every feature. So we started building it for them. That was a mistake. This prospect was huge, a dream client. They wanted the full product suite and every feature that we had imagined. So we spent more than a year to build it. This was before AI. This was before the time you could wipe code something on a weekend. Every feature was manual, slow, and expensive. We kept spending and thinking that this is an investment and it will pay off when they sign. And they did sign eventually. It's not like we lost the customer. But then the COVID happened. I quit because of burnout and the team fell apart, so we had to cancel the contract. A year of work gone. When you bet everything on one deal, you're not building a business, you're gambling. One customer can leave, one prospect can say no, one pandemic can wipe out your entire pipeline. So here's what that experience taught me. Small deals teach you what people want. They give you revenue to survive, and they prove your business works before you go big. Revenue is validation, and a one maybe is not. So, would I do it again? Yes, absolutely. And I am doing it right now. But I'm using my experience from the past to do it the better way. The pain wasn't fun. It really wasn't. I was working 16-hour days. I was pulling all night. I was missing weddings. I was missing birthdays. And there was even one weekend where I worked from Friday to Monday without actually sleeping at all because we had a critical deployment. Relationships fell apart. My health fell apart. The burnout lasted for more than 2 years. But here's the thing, those lessons, they don't come from books. They don't come from podcasts. They come from losing money. They come from losing sleep and losing your time. They come when you have skin in the game. Everything I've done since then, the Microsoft years, my current role as founding engineer, all of it sits on top of what I learned from that failure. That $125,000 bought me clarity I couldn't have gotten any other way. My mom, she had a stroke during COVID. It forced me to stop, forced me to step back, to pause, to actually look at what I had been doing for the last 3 years. I realized I had been shooting in the dark, telling myself this is normal. I never spoke to other founders, never learned what other people in the industry are doing. I never questioned whether I was on the right path. Sometimes life has to pause you before you'll pause yourself. That experience taught me something I still carry today. The goal isn't to avoid failures, it's to fail fast enough that you can try again. So, what's an expensive lesson that you have learned the hard way? Drop it in the comments, and I'm really curious to learn more about it. And if this was helpful, hit the subscribe button. I'm sharing these lessons every week from the journey, not from the destination. Until next time.